Welcome to another episode of Untold Stories. Our guest this time is the affable V. Chakrapani, a group head internal audit, Quality Initiative Group. Chucks, as is fondly referred to by his friends and colleagues, is a man of few words. But do not let that confuse you, as he is jovial and always carries a smile on his face. He's also capable of cracking jokes with the same aplomb as he cracks the whip. He is joined by his senior colleagues from all India, all of whom seem to carry the same streak. They do very intense work, but somehow never fail to carry the smile on their faces. We'll find out from them how they manage to keep this unusual marriage working. We'll find out much more from them in this interview, for which they've found time. We can't thank them enough for sparing time for this interview. My first question to you, Chucks, is what I ask all our guests on this program. What was your first reaction when you heard Prime Minister announce lockdown a few weeks back?
Thank you for having me here and to giving an opportunity to speak to all the colleagues of mine. I think the feeling when we heard the Prime Minister announcing the lockdown, still that time probably we have not got the gravity of the issue, and the first thing that came to the mind is the health and the safety of the people and my colleagues, my family members, and certainly that was dawning upon us, saying that is this pandemic so worse, so critical, so serious, that necessitated Prime Minister to come on the media to announce lockdown initially up to the 14th of April. I think it took few hours and I wouldn't say days. That yes, one is safety, and the second thing, realize that we working for a banking institution, and the banking services being essential services of what has been made known to all of us, that the bank branches need to function, the bank need to service its customer, and more so in these times, people will like to have a financial institution to be stable, and the customer is able to access his money at all points of time. So naturally, after the health and the safety, which came at the first point, getting into work, saying that what we need to do to make sure that the branches, the system are functioning to offer the banking services to its customers. So fortunately, the bank was very resilient in its approach, and immediately the business continuity plan, which was always in the bank, was invoked, and all the senior leaders got together to say that the very next day, which is the 24th, where the lockdown was announced, that how are you going to get all the branches up and running? How do you make your system is going to be running? So we need to make sure that the people at the front staff and very bare minimum staff in the operations and the support staff is available. More importantly, the people working in the data center, more people working in the IT department are available to make sure the systems are all there by 24/7. Our ATMs are functional. Our digital banking, both mobile and net, was available for the customers to do. These are the immediate things which actually we did in the next couple of days of the initial lockdown.
You know, when it all began, the priority was the business continuity and show must go on. But immediately the priority shifted to ensuring that we are available to the customers throughout. Now, this in a context of a lockdown, this would have meant tweaking certain policies, short-circuiting something. It's something that a normal person would like to see. Now, did you ever think, did it cross your mind, Chucks, ever that, uh, you have to do this without compromising on compliance? How did you manage this trade-off? I mean, during this?
So, as I was mentioning, saying what you call unprecedented times will require some amount of, we can't function as business as usual. We have to it calls for what you call novel way of dealing with situations, and priority is, the end objective is very clear, that as the banking services should be available to its customers at all point of time. We need to, when you know that people in lockdown situation, you have a skeleton staff to come, even your customers are not able to reach to your branch officers, but yet they want to meet the financial obligation. They have the need to complete financial transactions. Naturally, that there will be, the river will find its own way of finding its way. So natural processes have to, what we were doing has to be changed. The challenge would always be the tightrope walking between customer service and risk mitigation process. I think there is where the skill of managing your risk versus customer convenience, customer satisfaction. I think many of the processes where actually need to be tweaked, little change, exceptional scenarios created. How do you meet that exceptional scenarios? I think that is very illustrative of the agility of the organization to get collectively, whether it is a business group or the risk group or my own colleagues in my department in audit and compliance and service quality. Wherever the request was coming in from the frontline staff or an operating staff, this is what the customer is expecting us to do. This is what we used to follow earlier. It is not going to help us do the same amount of service if you have to follow that process. What is the proposed changes which is required to be made?
My question is, given the fact that you mentioned that this is uncharted territory, and you and your team were working from home, can you just take us through, what it took to coordinate with the regulator, keeping in mind this environment?
As I was mentioning, this lockdown situation was something which was totally caught many of us unaware, and we could already see what's coming on. It is also relevant to state that the lockdown began on somewhere on 24th March, which is almost a week away from the year-ending process where normally we close our accounts and financial accounts. I think it was close to our year-ending process. So we were gearing up to make sure that as a function, we were well aware that we have a role to play in terms of closing of accounts, making sure the financial accounts are closed on 31st March, and as I was mentioning, that keep our business operations or the branch operations being available to its customer. It is in these times, I think we also need to keep our various stakeholders, whether it is customers, whether it is board committee members, board members, keep updating them on what the steps we are taking to keep to deal with the situation. One of the important stakeholders being a regulator, main regulator, Reserve Bank of India. I think their oversight on the banking environment and banking is very, very key to keep the financial market, financial institution thing. I would request my colleague Arun to also tell us what he dealt with the regulator and what are the various steps the bank has taken.
So RBI expect that in this difficult time, banks should be prepared to meet any exigencies so that they have the business continuity plan, so that the branches, their ATMs, their business correspondents are working in tandem so as to enable them to render the service. So as you know, during this time, there is a lot of difficulty in the transportation, in the movement of the people. Still, we in compliance have ensured that the people, the branches are open to the best extent possible, because we are supposed to who are expected to share the MIS on a daily basis, the functioning of the branches. 2 days after the moratorium, 2 days after the pandemic, so RBI as a regulator came out with certain guidelines to help the people, basically the borrowers. So they have announced some certain measures, right, in the circular issued in March and in April. That is called moratorium given to the customers. So as a compliance, you have to ensure that the necessary process policy is in place to extend the benefit to the customers who deserve this. Again, that was followed by another guidelines circular which came in May end, that is for moratorium 2.0, again extending the moratorium period for another 6 months. So as you know, so the bank has put in place the process, and my colleague Mr. Vishwas Sate from Audit, he will take you through the implementation process, how the bank has implemented these various measures taken by the bank so to ensure that the various guidelines are implemented.
Yes, Arun. As we are aware that RBI has come out with the moratorium-related circulars, one in the month of March and second time in the month of May on extension of the lockdown. Basis this RBI circulars and RBI directives, our bank had to frame the policies to be approved by the board. So we have been in association with the compliance team reviewing the policies for the completeness and the compliance. Basis these policies, we have to also ensure that we are systemically capable. The changes required to be done in the system that are to be reviewed and tested as we call as user acceptance tests. So that particular piece to ensure the systemically implementation was also ensured as part of the credit audit. And last and more importantly, effectively and sooner implementation and operationalization of these RBI directives is overseen to ensure that the eligible customers are benefited at appropriate earliest possible time. That has been the major oversight on implementation of RBI guidelines on moratorium.
As you said, the moratorium was announced on the 27th of March. And it was not only the month end but also the year end coming close. And RBI came up with a whole set of norms to be and benefits to be given to the customers. How difficult or easy it was for you as a team to do all these things and meet the expectation of people throughout the country who were eagerly waiting for the benefits of the moratorium?
I think for the next 3-4 days, I think every team participated in making sure one, we have a board approved policy which was required by RBI to frame, and we have an operating guideline to operationalize the board approved policy. We have system level changes to make sure that what has been made in the policy and the operating guidelines are enabled in the system. Last but not the least, customer communication to make sure all both the wholesale customers and the retail customers are communicated effectively, unambiguously. The guidelines which is being framed by RBI and our own board to take advantage and take usage of this moratorium, because the end purpose was that Reserve Bank and the Government of India felt during this unprecedented time there will be hampering of cash flow for the businessman, the entrepreneurs, more importantly medium and small scale industries, entrepreneurs who actually will be worst affected, and they should be given the benefit of saying that their installment and the interest due in the first moratorium 1.0 or where the moratorium was extended up to 31st May, that the interest and the principal due for these 3 months are deferred for payment. So this was the thing which was done, and as you rightly said, it was also coinciding with our year end. So our financial account should also get reflected in terms of overdue position, in terms of recovery status, and everything will have to get baked into our financial account. So the financial accounting group and CFO was very integral part of getting this implementation done, both for the customers as well as reflecting in our financial accounts.
With the lockdown coming into effect, a lot of our customers were unable to come into branches. Obviously, they needed a lot of the processes to move online. I'm sure there were a lot of innovations that you and your team thought of in these initial days to make this a possibility. Can you take us through the digital journey that we went through as an organization in these early days?
I think very, very pertinent and very relevant question to you, Sherna. Thanks for that. I think, as you must be aware, HDFC Bank has been in the forefront of digital journey even before the lockdown. And realizing for the past 2 to 3 years, we had a great amount of strides we made in the digital journey and enabling many of our services digitally. I think I would split into the three aspects of what we as a bank was trying to do. One, our entire processes was being reviewed, and as I said, that to handle this exceptional situation. And second aspect is basically continuing with the digital journey. What more can we do digitally to make sure the customer could access the bank and avail the services more from home than what he used to do earlier? Third thing is also looking at our colleagues, how do they actually service this customer being at home, not able to reach the office. So to take us detail about all the three aspects, one, what changes we made to the process and procedures. I would now invite Lopa, my senior colleague in audit, to elaborate what our team has done to actually enable this process.
So as they say, the show must go on. I guess while the lockdown restricted movements of customers, it also parallelly restricted movements of our staff. And working with skeletal staff to fulfill this objective of meeting customer needs was a challenging one. Nevertheless, we had to learn and unlearn a lot of processes. As Mr. Chakrapani said, our objective was very clear that we had to process those customer transactions at that point of time. So we looked at the risks, we looked at the mitigants, and we worked out compensating controls to ensure that the bank is not exposed to risk. I guess we did it across various businesses, various operating units to ensure that we could meet the customer expectation of his financial obligations and process his transactions. Besides transactions, we had new business challenges also, acquisition of new businesses. And we had some initiatives there that I'm requesting my colleague Yatin to take us through quickly.
As we all know, the bank has always been in the forefront of providing, digital services and journeys to its customer. Now, what lockdown actually did is that it further accentuated these offerings. Now, with various processes being further digitized, they were in the process of being digitized. We were able to actually deliver those services during this lockdown period. Today, now customers are now able to open accounts without the need of visiting any of the branches or even meeting a bank employee. And these changes, were difficult ones. All the teams across the board, sat together, the technology, product team, audit team, operations team, the business team, jointly, all these things were delivered, and that too in quick time. I mean, that's something which we could see in this lockdown period which happened. I will also request Lakshmi to take this forward from a digital front, because she's the one who's handling the technology piece of audit in our team.
So work from home as a concept, what is the technology that we're going to use? While IT had implemented certain technology even for during BAU, how should one extend this to the rest of the bank? Now that was the question. And secondly, so that is the availability part. But what about the security? So to cut a balance between ensuring availability and also ensuring cybersecurity was a challenge. And hence several departments, IT, ISG, all of us, we all got together, reviewed the pros and cons, and tried to make sure that at the end of the day, the solution that was deployed is secure for work from home. So that's how it happened.
Mr. Chakrapani, how did you and your team work from home and still manage to retain an oversight on the business?
One is we have to have two. I will split the role into two, three. One, as a group, we have to give clarity of thought, clarity of process, clarity of policy guidelines, which comes from regulators, because the staff across India will look to saying that what is the clarification and unambiguous instruction which the group is giving. The second aspect is basically when you actually look, I think my colleague Lopa was also mentioning that we have to tweak our processes, change processes to make sure that we enable the services. The third aspect is saying that during this time, probably the oversight by the group, by the audit is very important to make sure that we don't expose the bank to any avoidable risk, any areas of non-compliance. I think we had geared up to that. In fact, I had several rounds of meeting with my senior leadership team to make sure how do we actually monitor various aspects relating to various business while being at home, and yet we keep what you call the monitoring and control and supervision over the banking operations, banking processes.
When the moratorium was announced, customers had a lot of queries. Given that the teams were working from home, how difficult it was for them to maintain the same service standards that customers have come to expect of us and do grievance redressal while working from home.
I think that's the mindset. I think the senior leadership team of the HDFC Bank, and fortunately, a lot of colleagues had that mindset that HDFC Bank has to be differentiated during these unprecedented times, saying that they will come what may provide services of the same benchmark during normal time. So we have seen a lot of people risking their own health, safety, coming to the bank and providing these banking services. Yes, during this time when the customers are operating from home and cannot reach, there would be a lot of challenges the customers would be facing, giving rise to many of customer expectation not being met, or customer being in troubled times where he requires any further help from the bank. These are pockets where I think bank do recognize that these are the time when the bank has to put that extra mile. I think my team was always in the normal time also being in measuring the service quality, the turnaround time, and customer responsiveness to the complaint and redressal. What has been very, very heartening to note during this time when we actually received a lot of praises, customers writing back saying that the staff of HDFC Bank were exemplary in services. This was the difficult situation we were in, but they could help us to do this. I think more. I would request my senior colleague Janobia, who had the complaint, to actually speak and take us through what our team has done to actually rally through this period when for customer to get the service from HDFC Bank.
Well, I would like to acknowledge and thank the entire team that they rose to the occasion in these difficult times. Most important was that at the time of the lockdown, it was about customer service. Initially, everybody started working from home, but when they realized that there were a few systems which were not accessible to them, they actually went out to branches and offices to ensure that they work. And they don't only resolve customer queries and the concerns, the complaints that the customers have, but at this point of time, it was also ensuring that we respond to them appropriately, timely, and even better than what we always did, and that the communication is crystal clear to them. This passion actually drove the team to deliver. They kept only one aim of the bank in mind. One is to meet the customer expectations and live up to HDFC Bank brand image. Thank you so much.
So what leadership lessons through the course of this lockdown you've realized and you would like to share with everyone who's watching this?
One leadership lesson is saying that you could be extremely responsive, extremely collaborating. You don't have to see them, but the voice and the feeling was much thing. I would say that in the last 2 months as a bank, we would have come stronger, united, very cohesive team, both in all spheres of operations, be it in the wholesale banking, be it in the retail banking. I remember very as a social initiative, the bank got involved in enabling the PM Care Fund, where the people could contribute using HDFC Bank channel. Marketing team came out with the marker for social distancing thing, where actually speaking how you maintain 2 feet distances for social distancing, and various initiatives taken by the bank, whether it is the art competition, whether it is how do you keep the customer engaged or staff engaged in various things, was something which was every team was thinking what I should do with out of box thinking. What will I make the difference to the organization, to the end customer, to the various stakeholders? I think I have never seen such what you call collaborative, and everyone want to contribute, thinking out of box, going that extra mile, and make sure the HDFC Bank brand is enhanced, the customer services is enhanced, our businesses are being run on normal thing, and such is the passion with all the employees of HDFC Bank shown is unprecedented.
How was compliance at home? I'm not asking who was the boss there. I know that's a given. How did you comply? Did you comply with her orders at home?
I think the answer is a yes and a no. Yes, mostly I'm a very disciplined person even at home, because unless we have certain structure to our day, these times we'll find it difficult. So I think to answer your question, I did admit that our helpers have stopped, so I had to actually participate and give help to the house work. And second thing is, we used to observe a lot of discipline in our timing of food, in terms of sleep. I think to answer a question, I was absolutely compliant both at home and make sure that there is orderliness maintained.
Lovely. Any stint in the kitchen, Chucks, to make tea, or did you try your hands at with culinary skills? Did you get a chance to show?
I always have been not that I need tried anything new, but normally also I do try out myself in kitchen on a regular basis. So this was a godsend opportunity, saying that one, since there were a lot of helpers have stopped, so naturally your spouse has to depend on you more than what she used to depend earlier. So I had a lot of things to try on, and I can admit that it was very appreciated by my family what was made out, and they are still healthy and safe after whatever they tried out, what I tried out. Neeraj, I just wanted to also share with you something which is beyond what we talked about, process thing. What our team did, if I would be happy to share that many of the team across India did many things for volunteering, for doing service back to the society, and I was very delighted to hear this from my team. And I would now request Lopaz if you can share what are the things you think our team has did during this lockdown period, Lopaz.
So, in these challenging times, I think the audit team members thought of kindling some hope in the hearts of the less privileged. Various initiatives were taken by the team members across the country. We had members supplying food and basic essentials to the needy across cities. We had people feeding stray animals in their localities. We had members participating in blood donation drives. Parallelly, we also realized that it was essential to acknowledge the efforts of our frontline soldiers in the bank who in these challenging times were on their toes. So as a thank you gesture, we have a small message for all of you out there. While we are constrained in our nests, our frontline soldiers are not at rest. Adorning masks and gloves as their new dress. Against all odds, they are doing their best. Some are at the forefront, some quietly behind a few. Take a bow, all of you, as we say, thank you. We recognize your efforts. We are in it with you. Accept our applause, each and every one of you. While the times are tough, these will also pass. Let's keep up our spirits. Dusk always does not last. Let's have the conviction we'll live through the night. Our faith will sustain. We shall see the light. Stay safe.
Beautiful. I mean, the Lopaz creation, I mean, it's so wonderful. I mean, it's such a wonderful. With this, we have come to an end of this program. The most power-packed bunch of individuals. It was thoroughly entertaining. I enjoyed it, and so did my colleagues, and I'm very sure so will the viewers. Keep smiling, and thank you so much for finding time for this program.